Okay, it is 4:01 on Thursday, July 9th of 2026. We are holding a study session for the Lake Mountain School District Board of Education. We are meeting at the district office located at 1307 North Commerce Drive in Saratoga Springs, Utah. First up on our study session today, we have a presentation by James Porter, who's with the Space Center. And so we're going to turn the time over to you guys. Information has been distributed out to each individual board member. And then I also want to make sure that I excuse board member Lincoln, who will not be attending study session or board meeting today. James.
Well, thank you for having me be here today, or at least accepting my desire to come and talk to you. And I'll try to be brief. My main goal is to introduce those that are less familiar with the Space Center and what we offer out there. On your sheet there, you'll see some of the different things that have happened. I try to do this every year and present to the school boards, and since we've got 4 that I get to present to a year, that's a fun thing. The basics, without having to go through all of these different things, we reach a lot of different students, and we reach a lot of different members within our community beyond even the student body. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is that there's a lot of decisions that are being made, and you guys have a lot that's going on that you're figuring out, and I hope that I can put us a little bit into the forefront of your minds a bit about what are the different opportunities that are going to happen as the district split finalizes within less than a year. It's interesting to look at that fun timeline there, and to see what we might be able to do as we continue to serve the students that are local to us and those that might be considered further away. But my main thing that I wanted to do is invite you out to come and see the Space Center. I know it sounds like some of you haven't been able to visit there and see what we offer. One of the key things that I would emphasize is that, as you can see there, we have thousands of students that come through every year for our field trip program. That's the meat and potatoes of what we do. We have, if you're looking at the 6 C's and what we can accomplish with that, it's probably the most effective program that I've ever experienced or seen as I've gone out and researched other things. And it leaves a lasting impact on students. One of the focuses that I'm working on right now is we're really looking at career paths and helping to connect students that take that excitement and figure out what are the collegiate opportunities that they have, as well as future career paths that they can do. And so those are some of the things that we're trying to incorporate so that it's not just a flash in the pan. That was exciting, that was memorable, but that was meaningful, and what are the things that I can then take and move on to. And so there's a lot of things that we're trying to do to grow that. Beyond the students that come on field trips, we are open to the public for people to come. A lot of the birthday parties, we had bachelorette party just this last week. There's a lot of fun different things that happen. And what's great is a lot of that is what supports the 45 part-time employees that we have. So we have mostly student employees. We have many that are university students, and they are able to get through college working part-time. Working our field trips most of the time is the most stable pay, but they'll work in the evenings and on weekends when we're open to the public. And so when you're looking at how our program is able to be sustained, that's a big part of it, because we don't take any sort of budgeted amount for sustaining their work, but anything that we generate then goes towards paying for those employees. And then we have, right now we've just surpassed 100 volunteers again. So we have volunteers that come in and put thousands of hours. Over the summer, they easily put in close to 6,000 to 8,000 hours volunteering. We've got a camp going on right now. I've got 14 volunteers there right now and 10 staff members, and we're running camps all the time to make it so that kids can come and have these great experiences. And so, yeah, like there's the impact of our program. A lot of the times, I think it gets misconstrued. People think of it as we're just out there doing science fiction fun. And that's true. We are having fun out there. But we also have a lot of meaningful activities. Sorry. One of the things that I have is a concern. I feel like the Lorax a little bit, where I'm speaking for the trees. The volunteers are precious to me. I love them. A lot of them are at risk for different reasons, and they find a home at the Space Center. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do is advocate and say that we would love to find ways that we can continue to operate in the same way that we do. When all of the discussions were happening about the district split, one of the things that we were actually in the process of doing was putting together a plan to try to get more coverage, because right now the district basically pays my salary. That's the big expense that we have. And they pay lighting, and they pay all those other things, right? But when you look at the cost of that, that's a pretty small fraction. But when we moved from our old building, for those that are familiar with it, to our new building, we went from being able to do a maximum of 80 students on a field trip, and now we can handle 120. Because one of the big features that we have is we have our full dome planetarium. We're the second largest planetarium in Utah. We barely beat out BYU because we used the standard instead of metric system. And so we got them by a couple of inches. But what the great thing is that tool, here's the basic model, and I'm about halfway through my time and I want to make sure I can answer questions. The way that our model works well is that we've always been able to take the funds that we have and reinvest it. So right now we're going through and making improvements in our simulators. We're making improvements in the content, purchasing additional shows. We make our own custom laser shows. We actually had a donation a few years back that made us so we could do laser shows. And what's cool about that is it's actually been one of our biggest revenue generators, that we take a bit of a loss running our field trips, and we do that purposefully because we know that it's hard for schools to be able to come out and visit us. But what's nice is the lasers actually covered all of the deficit this last year. And so it's doing things like that and innovating in different ways has made us so that we can operate effectively. So that's the way it's, sorry, I know I tangented there. But we try to take all of those funds, and what's great is the district has been really good at supporting us in being able to reinvest into the program. As an example, like our volunteers, right, I said is a key thing that is really one of the greatest benefits that we have, is that we have this great program for them to come to, but they have to maintain their grades. They have to maintain some of the progression in learning skills that they're supposed to be developing. And we do that because we find that then they have something that they can seek after and are motivated for. And even last year, one of the things we did was we started offering some after-school tutoring in math, because we found that the grades that they were struggling with was math. And we had one of our staff members that volunteered to come after school and started doing tutoring. So it's opportunities like that that we fill unique needs. And so this is me just kind of reporting in that we're still doing that. We're still meeting a lot of the needs that are happening in our community, and we're excited to continue to make it that this program grows and meets even more needs. So that's the basics. There's a lot more that you can dig into. There's great partnerships that we're starting to reach out to with different organizations in the community and universities. We have opportunities where we've applied for different grants. Sadly, a lot of the National Science Foundation grants that we were connected to with like BYU got shut down. So but that's the great thing, is we're a good opportunity to bring in some of these additional funds and benefit our students. So any questions that you have about the Space Center that I can answer for you? I know I'll throw that one at you all of a sudden.
So just so you know, James, one of the fun things is our mics are just a tad delayed. So if there's an awkward pause, just know it's like a regular pause. So just hold on a second. Charity, did you have a... Oh, sorry. That's going to mess me up. That's going to mess me up all night, guys.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the career paths? You mentioned like the CT pathways. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so this last summer, one of the things that we did is we saw that we were developing new software. All of our stuff is, right? And so one of the things that we decided is we opened it up, and we had two college students who applied to be interns with us, and they worked with, we always pair them with some sort of specialist, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had a community member who volunteers with us, and he's a computer science engineer, and so he was there mentoring them as they worked on programs. And so it's opportunities like that where we want them to recognize, like, so let's say you're the engineer on the ship. Okay, what is an engineer? Well, here's all of the different career paths that we feel like can be connected. You'll see on there that we do have the high school interns. We have, it fluctuates, right? It depends. We're actually oftentimes one of the ones that when the CTE department says, we can't find a placement for these students, do you have an opportunity? Mm-hmm. And so what we'll do is we actually do it in a model where it's project-based. They have to make a proposal of what it is that they're going to produce, and we give them some examples of things that they could do. And then we pair them up again with someone that has the expertise that they can go through, and they do revision processes, and they work towards a final product that what's great about it, a lot of those students put in way more than the minimum hours because they know that they're excited about it, it's something fun for them, but they know that it's going to be used. We use it in there. So if you go to our 80s Rock, that was one of our first high school interns. He put an element and his name is in the show because of what he contributed. So it's those sorts of paths that we're creating. And I do actually think that there's a lot of opportunities, even especially connecting at the state level, that we could connect the CT aspect and the Space Center a lot more strongly.
Thank you.
So James, you mentioned about us potentially coming and seeing the Space Center. What's your preference as far as like us scheduling as a group or just reaching out to you individually? What's your preference?
Yeah, if you want to see who the true captain is among you, we can get you into like one of the simulators. I would love for you to do that. That's actually a great one. We get a lot of businesses that come and participate, which is another great avenue that I genuinely say that if you've got strong business partners, we feel like the Space Center is a great way for you to strengthen those relationships because they'll come in and do team building. So as far as coming and doing that, that's a great way. We can also just easily say, hey, this is when we're going to be in the area because we're doing X, Y, or Z. And I'll come and I'll tour you through it, show you everything that we can. As long as I don't have a child throwing up during a summer camp like yesterday, I can help you out with it. So that's one of the easiest ways. Or doing community events, right? One of the things that we've done in the past as well is like PTAs, we'll give them a discount code that they can use, or we'll give them a code that if people come and purchase it at night, kind of like going to the restaurants and the portion of that, we do stuff like that. So if that was something that you'd like to do as a Lake Mountain sponsored event, that would be a really cool thing that we could do too.
Awesome. And then can you remind me, what's the cost per student? I know that the field trips sometimes vary a little bit, but can you let me know what the cost per student is?
No, we've worked hard to maintain that. Right now it's about $6 per student for them to come and do a field trip. And one of the ways that we do that is we actually just make it that it's based on the number of simulators that they need for that day. That way it's a flat rate and they don't have to worry about fluctuating. And we try to just cover the cost of our employees.
Awesome, thanks.
I think you fall in the new Timpanogos School District.
I do.
Yeah, okay. Is Timpanogos going to keep the Space Center going?
I mean, that's the great question, right? Obviously, we hope that everybody would want to be involved in keeping the Space Center going. I don't know what the specifics are. I know questions about like memos of understanding for things like the print shop have been sorted, but then how would that affect our program? That's one of the questions that I'd love to have discussions with and see what we can do.
So assuming that you will be still open, I'm assuming you want to open it up to our district to sign up to fill in dates. Is there going to be some kind of seniority or something for picking those dates? How are the dates picked for schools to pick them?
Yeah, so right now we give priority to Alpine School District as a whole, and that's what we do. Anybody that's outside school district, we give the interior district that priority first. I would love to just make it so that the three districts still have the prime priority, because right now I get to about August and I start getting teachers saying, hey, there's not dates available. Are you open? And I say, sorry, we've already filled up. And so that would be my goal, is that we would keep those three districts having priority to be able to take those first spots.
What is the sign-up process? Is there a date you can start signing up for the school year or
Yeah,
something?
so I reach out to the schools that have participated with us. Because that's usually the easiest way, is the lead teachers that came before. They understand that process. We'll reach out to them, get them signed up for their stuff, and then after we've taken care of that, we open it up to those other schools.
Okay.
And that's mostly to make sure that we're maintaining some of the expenses that we have for our staff, that we fill up the rest of those field trips. Good question.
Who owns the building, equipment, technology?
Yeah, so we're connected to Central Elementary. When the rebuild happened in 2020, that new facility was built as a part of Central Elementary. So you can go through a door and suddenly you're in a sixth grade hall again.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for being here. I've had a son that has gone a couple times on field trips, and they've been really meaningful to him. And I got to be there as part of it, as chaperoning it, and just could see the value that it brought to the students. And so just appreciate you being here and sharing with the rest of the board, and just being able to see this side of the details as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one other question. Judd, knowing the distance some of our schools are from the location, has there been any talk of doing any remote activities? Have you ever brought some of your activities to another location, or is it more preferred that everyone comes to you?
Yeah, so it ends up being about, and the funny thing is we'll actually get on the other side of the mountain, they get there first. We get, and it's probably because they know that bus is going to take longer. The district transportation has actually been really good. Like, I'll have Linden show up later than schools that are on this side. And so as far as doing remote stuff, a key thing is that we do have a pretty significant facility as far as like what we can do. A lot of the outreach, I would say right now, I think we've got more opportunities in those extended upper grade internship opportunities. I think that's where we get more of the value, just because the transportation of the tools that we have would be less effective probably. We used to have like an inflatable planetarium, and the district we would rent it, well, not rent it out, we'd just get it around. And it took a lot of abuse, and the cost for maintaining some of that stuff became a little bit higher than just bringing them out there was cheaper.
I thank you for coming. I appreciate your passion.
Yeah.
Is it accurate that space zombies are still really popular? Is that a real thing?
If you mean that, like today at a camp, one of the students was like, hey, do you do this mission anymore? And it kind of has some space zombies in it, then yeah.
Okay. That's what I hear from my kids that have all been through it. It's like the space zombies were the highlight.
The great thing too is that sometimes we don't have space zombies, but that's what their imagination puts in.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of times, and really if you were looking at it, even looking at the facility, we have an amazing facility, but the thing that is the long-lasting impact is that it facilitates their imagination. And the things that they'll describe to you have not happened. I mean, we have kids that go through the halls of a school and their imagination is going so wild and they accept what's happening that they'll come home with some pretty wild stuff. But then that's also, and not that we have time to go into it, that's part of the study that when I worked on my master's, it talks about why do some of these experiences linger? And a lot of it has to do with the suspension of disbelief.
Cool.
So I've spent probably too much of your time.
No, you're good, James. We really appreciate you being here and taking the time to share the information, and we'll coordinate with you about potentially like a tour or a visit, so we'll reach out.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for all you do, and good luck with all the transitions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, next up on our agenda, we have some RFP updates that are going to come from Vice President Isaacson, so we're going to invite him to shift to the podium for the presentation.
All right, well, that comes up. It's on the opposite side of the podium and dais here, in that weird transition period where maybe a little more involved in a normal board member role. But I want to give an update on the RFPs that we have going on, and in general on some of the construction and critical needs that the district has for operational readiness. So referencing back to the board's really what we refer to as year zero plan, this T minus 1 year period. Our vision that we've all agreed on has been to achieve operational readiness for the July 1, 2027 start, and in taking that one step further to be as independent as possible. And so these RFPs that I'll update and answer questions on represent critical needs that we have for opening. For example, the first RFP was regarding the renovation of this building, and so that's been awarded, and we're starting the process of having that team come through the building. They're taking pictures and getting plans together, and they're going to be presenting some concept designs and really nailing down the scope and process so the construction can start. So the update on the renovation of district offices is it's proceeding now quickly. and we're excited to see those next steps. That would be RFP 1. Any questions? We'll just go through pretty quickly. You have a timeline? Yeah, it's aggressive, but optimistically speaking, we're hoping for mid-April. In terms of? Finished and done. Finished and done, open for business here in this building. And in some spaces, they're going to dramatically reinvent the space. This one that we're standing in now, the idea is, and we'll talk about it with RFP number 2, the board chambers will actually move to another facility, and this will become offices. So that's a pretty big change. Mechanically, engineering, from those perspectives, it's also a pretty big change. The building's just old enough that some things like the air conditioning that's currently broken in this space, because we're all really warm, they're going to replace and centralize some of the mechanical systems. And so, it was 4 suites between a library and the police station and then a dentist and an orthodontist office. We all know the story and the history of the building, but they were meant to be operated independent from one another. And so unifying those into kind of a centralized mechanical, that's alarm and cameras and air conditioning and heating and so on.
Can you also give timeline as to when we need out of the building, and then what the thought process is about that empty space?
There's some things like timelines on leaving the space that are moving targets, but we're thinking about a month from now we could be moving out of this space and won't be returning for some period. Depending on the transition plans and how the designs pan out, there are some areas in the building that may need significantly less re-envisioning, reconstruction. And so there's a possibility that we move into and have access to start using the building sooner than the mid-April, depending if they end up finishing some of the quadrants or sections of the building in some phases. So that is an option. But we're looking at about a month from now being out, and it'll require us as a board to start meeting in a new space. And so we're currently working on a plan for that. Okay. RFP number 2 takes a little bit of explanation back to referencing our year 0 vision of operational readiness. We recognize that there's some spaces and departments that just won't have a home. For example, technology is a pretty big department with somewhere in the 15 to 20 people range, but they also have a lot of equipment and specialized staff and jobs that require a lot of space to work, and that's not really traditionally in like an office setting like this one. Another example would be print shop. Our decision to go independent on print shop is a big one, but again, it represents our overall vision of both readiness and independence. And so print shop, technology, the current Westlake data center is at capacity with no real room to grow, and so we need an expansion of the data center. Last board meeting we talked about that being a piece actually came out of the negotiations, was that the Alpine supporting all 3 districts in the expansion of the data needs. So Aspen Peaks currently has one under construction, and the capital budget will allot for the construction of an expanded data center for us, but it needs a physical location. So RFP number 2 is what we're calling support services, and it would be what's labeled in the diagram on the TV as new building. We made the map before we had a name for it. Support services is what it sounds like. It's training spaces, it's professional development spaces, it's where teachers would go to drop off things for print or IT could respond to. It would be potentially, and it's still, so again, some of this is moving target as the district leadership makes some of these final determinations, but it could be fingerprinting and background checks, it could be preschool assessment and testing. It also serves as an overflow to some of the departments that just won't physically fit overtime here in this space. But the idea is support services is everything that is that ancillary support for schools, including most of your things that would be public facing, like the board meeting space. So RFP number 2, similar to 1, but a little bit behind that first RFP. It has been processed. Now Alpine has been, in the purchasing and procurement department, has been supporting these RFPs. They've been issuing them and processing through the technical requirements, including the state networks that have to be published too. But it has similarly been awarded, and we're meeting with them on next Tuesday to start the final design and concept plan development. One thing to clarify, the RFP process is involved. It's strictly governed by state rules for procurement on government spending over $50,000. So there's a formal document that goes out, there's a question and answer period, and there's a period where we receive proposals or bids. Those get evaluated by committee and numerically scored by a rubric that's published. Anyway, there's this whole process to it. In RFP 2, the scope is actually more than just the building. So on the map, you'll see the 2 new bus canopies that are immediately adjacent the new building. Those got lumped into this RFP because of just physical proximity. The bus, Transportation West, as it's called today, doesn't actually have enough space or pavement area to do the training, but there's this nice big space behind it based on how we can shift some of the elements on the parcel. So the bus the bus training area, the idea was to take that big field in the back behind the building and pave it and stripe it for the training of new bus drivers. There are certification requirements by the state for space and anyway, there's enough space there to accommodate those requirements, and so there's that. There's also a pretty large parking lot. This is knowing that this is a public-facing space, it's both parking for employees of bus, transportation, bus drivers, the staff that works at a potential maintenance building, as well as the scheduling and administration, but then also everyone that would work in the print services and support services. And then again, at nighttime, it'd flip, and there'd be a large parking area for those who come to board meetings or other admin conferences, training, things like that. Yeah.
What about, is there any chance that there might be overflow from Westlake parking? Like, students might try to trickle in there, or would that be more just day?
Yeah, more limited to employees during the day.
Question on the parking also. I'm seeing where the buses are currently on the
Yeah.
top right. Are we keeping any of the bus parking there, or is that all being?
Yeah, the idea is that in collaboration with the city, the design of the building or the design of the larger space is intended to create enough covered parking that there aren't any buses out in the elements.
Okay, so they'll all be under the new canopy?
Yeah.
And how many spots?
Yeah, but one of the canopies, they're very expensive, but each canopy is enough to accommodate about 30 buses. And for winter and inclement weather, they can plug in to keep the diesel engines warm and ready for firing up in the morning. There's a space right next to where there's all the outside parked buses. By the entrance is actually a large refueling tank. So they actually can fill the buses there, and that would be unchanged. We don't want to move that. So parking, new building, canopies, bus training area, all that's within the scope of this second RFP and has just recently been awarded, and they're just starting the process.
Any idea on?
Yeah, this timeline, this one's tricky. This requires not one but 2 rezones. The city's being incredibly supportive in the process. They want to help us succeed and be ready for day one. So the current timeline is end of May, if we were dreams came true, but realistically they're estimating mid-June for completion. We need it by really when it's due, right? So we will do everything we can to accelerate the timeline, but June is the realistic timeline. Yeah. Again, that permit process, again, representing that partnership and that support from the city, they've actually assigned staff. We met with the city as recently as yesterday. We're meeting with them regularly, and they've been awesome to support us, assigning us staff to fast track this process. Yeah. Let's move to the third RFP.
Matt, before you move on, maybe I missed it, what's the new maintenance building? Who's that for?
That's number 3.
Oh, okay.
Yep, exactly. So the new maintenance building, we need a home for mechanics to do their work in maintaining the fleet of buses. The allotment from our just strict proportions of students would be about 160 buses. We're fine tuning that through the cleanup phases of negotiations. Because we don't really need all 160 buses. And so it's a large fleet. It's everything from oil changes to some of the more intensive repairs that have to happen with maintenance of these long life cycle equipment. RFP for bus maintenance is still open. So it's been issued, and we've been fielding questions back and forth with the contractors that are going to be bidding submitting a proposal for bid. We've been answering those questions this week. It closes Friday, tomorrow, and the review and award of that contract is next week. So that is the bus maintenance. What's interesting about this building in particular is it's been designed where the current parking lot sits today. So the employees of Transportation West currently park where that building sits. By putting it there, its proximity is really, really close to Westlake. The idea is that we could allot some square footage in the bus maintenance building for future CTE expansion for mechanic and diesel mechanic programs, CTE pathways there. Hopefully we've applied for a grant for some CTE funds that could help offset the cost of some of the equipment and startup costs for that program. But if we can allot that in the size and construction of the initial building, then it'd be ready to go. So that's pretty cool. Notice that there are actually 2 entrances and exits, on the north side and on the east side. In case there's a road closure on one of the streets or a bus that breaks down or something that happens, they need to access those. So that will remain. The entrance to the lots will stay the same and save some money in construction. Timeline on that is still unknown. Yeah. The teams that are represented here, it's really truly a collaborative process. For example, Print Shop Technology, those groups, they're really involved in this in the design phases, giving input on what the spaces should look like, office configuration to workspace configuration. Some of them are technical needs, like the power requirements for the data center and IT and equipment. Similar to, in the maintenance center, those are really technical spaces. And so, bus lifts and underground in-ground service pits, those are, that's a collaborative process. So we're pulling in the staff that we've hired for those areas, and they're giving direct input in the design and design phases of the projects. I think that may be it.
Matt, I have a question. So once we get these buildings done on this property, do we have everything we need for transportation to be up and running for a while?
Yeah. The parcel is, we will essentially fill up the rest of the lot. There won't be any room for additional expansion. It will last us for a while, yes. It'll definitely meet our needs for the near-term future. Long-term, we all know that the district's expanding quickly. We'll eventually need a satellite depot for parking of additional buses, preferably in Eagle Mountain, so that the transportation doesn't have to go quite so far. But that's kind of medium to long-term.
So this will be our transportation central.
This will be center, administration, training, housing, fuel, routing, all of the above. And then eventually we would need a depot for bus parking in Eagle Mountain. Ideally, the maintenance center, though, is still centralized to here. Any other questions? Okay. Expect more conversation and updates as this evolves. It's actually really exciting. It represents a significant investment with our capital dollars. But that's why we have them, right? Like the Alpine has done a great job in setting up the new districts with enough capital funds to spend on projects like this one for operational readiness. Every district has different needs, and everyone's building something. We got a jump start on these three because we had so many, and we didn't have the luxury of doing them in series. We had to run them all in parallel, which has been a little frantic, to be honest, but it's working and it's going well. So anyway, okay, thank you.
Okay, next up, I'm going to review enrollment projections. Those things were sent to everybody earlier.
Is it this thing? I did like 4 or 10. Something.
I don't need you guys to turn up the mic. I'm really loud. Yeah.
You could have told me to speak up too.
Okay, so want to review with you guys some of the enrollment projections that were put together by one of our staff members. We've had 15 of the 16 elementary schools in our district be reboundaried in the last year and a half. And so that has seen a significant shift from even the enrollment projections that came out in November of 25. So want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up. And then there were a couple of different categories that were marked on here that are a little bit different than things we've seen in the past. So I want to talk about some of the limitations of this before we get into it. First off, no special schools are covered in this one, so you won't see information about Horizon or ATech West. They've not had significant shifts, so their pieces have not shifted. Also, when we're talking about things like capacity, we're talking about brick and mortar capacity. So we obviously can shift the capacity as we bring in portables or satellites. So I wanted to just make sure that I clarify when we're talking about capacity, we're talking about the actual brick and mortar, the number of classrooms physically in a building. And one of the things that is a little bit of a struggle is there does become a tipping point where even if you add portables and satellites, it has a significant impact on the common areas, whether that's the library, the cafeteria, the gym, some of your spaces for specialties. So just want to kind of address that. And then obviously we've seen some of the challenges at Cedar Valley and Westlake with parking when our schools get too big. So just to clarify, it talks about the capacity being in high school, 30 students per classroom, in middle school, 33 students per classroom, and in elementary, 26 students per classroom. Those numbers obviously fluctuate, but that's just the number that was used in each of these projections, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So as you're looking at the high school pieces, there is showing what the 2026 fall enrollment is, and then it shows you what the capacity is in fall of 2026, and then what the projected numbers are for fall of 2030, and then what the capacity will be at that space. Just be aware that ASD has a very good track record of nailing projections. They are most often wrong in our area. High growth areas are hardest to predict. So for example, one of the metrics that are used are when a woman goes to a hospital and gives birth to a baby, they take the mother's place of residence. So like, you know, previously we didn't have a hospital in Saratoga or in Eagle Mountain. So if you need to have a baby, you'd go to AF, you'd go to Provo, you know, Murray, Salt Lake kind of a thing. And so it would take into account like the mother resides in Saratoga, and then they'd say, okay, in 5 years, that baby will be a kindergartner. And so they took those birth records to kind of determine where it would go. That makes sense as long as you're following birth trends. The problem for our area is that, like, you know, when you've got 1,000 homes coming in, it's hard to predict, is that going to be, you know, 4 kids in an area, 1 kid per household? The enrollment changes based on if it's a single family home versus if it's high density, and the sheer volume of people that are moving here. We also, if you look at the statistics that are provided through the Census Bureau on le.utah.gov, you can look at our house districts, which are 50 and 51. If you look at those house districts, you'll see that we have some of the, like, we have the highest percentage of kids 0 to 2, or kids 0 to 4, or then, you know, elementary age students. So we have more students per capita than other areas, in addition to the fact that we're a growing area. We have a lot of families and a lot of large families. So just as we're looking at some of the high school things, you're going to see that basically Cedar Valley, which just last year, when Sage Canyon opened in the fall, dropped out 9th grade. They are at capacity day one, losing an entire grade level. That also means that in 2030, we're looking at over 3,300 students, which is essentially where, you know, Westlake is sitting now and where Cedar Valley was right before Sage Canyon opened. So essentially what's happening in a 4-year period is that we're going to be at 123% of capacity. So the story that needs to be told, we need to figure out the next high school. We've got one under construction, but what these statistics are telling us is that the 4th high school we need to start working on, because in 4 years, we're going to have an issue with the school being significantly over capacity. And attached to that is it takes generally 3 years to build a high school. So the numbers don't add up real great. Melissa? What determines capacity? So it's a number of classrooms per school. So like we literally go through and count the classrooms. And then like I talked at the beginning, it's 30 in high school, 33 in middle, 26 in elementary, knowing there's some flexibility with that. That's what we're determining as capacity. So obviously when Westlake was at, or when Cedar Valley was at 3,300, we have 2 satellites out there. We were able to support the students, but obviously there was a significant impact on parking, on like, you know, going through the lunchroom. You know, they're not designed to hold that many students.
So it doesn't include the satellites number?
So when we're talking capacity, it's only brick and mortar. Okay. The capacity can shift based on portables and satellites, but the numbers we're talking about are just brick and mortar, because we do start to stress the common uses.
Thank you.
So it doesn't include any of the portables or how many spaces we could bring in more portables?
No, when we're talking about capacity, it's brick and mortar.
Okay.
Okay, are we good with that one?
Good is
Any
relative.
questions specific to what?
Good is relative.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Thank you for the numbers, yes.
Okay, are there any specific questions related to the high schools? And the other thing I want to bring up is, I did get a question earlier, why is the new high school not on here? The boundary study hasn't been completed. So we anticipate that this fall, a boundary study will be conducted, and then we'll have a better idea of where we're going to be. But just to give you an idea, right, it's showing Westlake at 176% in 2030, or it's 162% essentially now, which is fine. Everything's fine, guys. It's fine. If you take the numbers, right, the 3647, and just split them in half, just say, okay, if we just literally like did it in half, each school would be 1823, but then that's also, you know, are we going to play with the 912 division a little bit? Are we not? Where's the new growth coming? We have some projects that we're anticipating coming on. 3 Canyons we're anticipating will be a significant impact, about 2,900 units. And then depending on when Toguayo starts coming in, that'll be another impact. So we have significant amount of growth that's going to happen in the south end of the city.
And just a frame of reference, Cedar Valley was the largest high school in the state, and now Westlake is. Is that still accurate?
Yeah, we're number 1. We like to be number 1. We're really competitive out
One
here.
and number 2, and now we just flip-flop.
We're number 1.
So when we look at the percentages of where it says capacity, since it doesn't include any of the portables, the numbers aren't as bad as it shows there, because this is only brick and mortar. Because we brought in portables or could still bring in more portables, then the 127% and 146% are not, it would be less than that. Question mark.
It's relative. I mean, how you want to see it. Like I said, there is a tipping point where, yes, you can add portables and satellites, and then there's a tipping point where it's, you know, and I'll just give you an example, right? Like sports are a great one. You can only have X amount of kids on a soccer team, X amount of kids on a basketball team. I mean, we love our marching bands. They're fantastic. I would argue part of the reason that our marching bands do so well, we have a lot of kids who really want to participate, and it is an activity where we, in the past, have not capped, although I think that is something we're probably near approaching. So, you know, only X amount of kids can be the lead in the play. And when you're in a school with 3,000 kids or 3,500 kids, there is a cost. And I'm not talking just like a financial cost. There's a cost to our students and our families. And so capacity is not just about how many kids we can squeeze in a building. It's also about making sure there's a level of connectivity and that we're seeing every student. And so I know that it's one of the things that our staff works very, very hard on to make sure that every student is connected in a way. But there is a cost associated when schools get too big.
Well, and squeeze is the right adjective, because we were there on our visit in the spring, right?
Yeah.
When we happened to be at Westlake during a passing period, and they were literally squeezing through the halls, they're crammed in.
So in that same vein of capacity, I guess my question is when we're looking at, obviously, we're not counting the portables and that space, that flex area, but cafeteria doesn't flex, and that main space.
The gym doesn't flex,
So
yeah.
when we're talking capacity this way, that directly correlates to the cafeteria space and things like that, what we have the capacity for.
Bathrooms.
Yeah, and one of the other
Bathrooms,
things,
yeah.
particularly like in elementary schools,
Okay.
right, it's art goes on art.
Right.
And there's a difference as to what you can do. We have phenomenal BTS instructors, right? There's a difference between what you can do in a classroom versus what you can do on a cart.
Fair.
I guess one other question. So these are both based on the 10-12 model, right? Do you think there have been any adjustments to what the high school models look like in terms of grades and flexing with the different middle schools? Or is that probably, we're going to go to the middle school next. Maybe that's a transition question, but.
Yeah, so one of the challenges is, right, I think that we've had a lot of questions, people reach out, ask about a 9-12 model. I think most parents, most students prefer the 9-12 model. There's an accessibility to not only athletics, AP, concurrent enrollment. You know, your kid is able to participate in everything from orchestra to band, right? There's more opportunities. One of the challenges we have is that high schools are the most expensive facilities we build. I think we're running around between 360, 380,000 square feet. And then you've got to figure in, it's the football stadium, it's the soccer field, it's the baseball diamond, the softball diamond, it's the auditorium, it's all the really big pieces. They're very, very expensive. I anticipate that our next high school is probably going to cost $200 million. That is a heavy price tag. I think it's worth it because we build schools to last 70 years. And I would argue if you've been in a high school at any point and seen how rough kids can be on the buildings, we build our buildings to last and to kind of withstand the treatment that sometimes high schoolers enact on the buildings. But they're very, very expensive. And it's cheaper to build middle schools and it's cheaper to build elementary schools. So if we eventually, do I think eventually there's very much a push to flip K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12. I would argue if we're going to do that district-wide, that would involve hundreds of millions of dollars of investment from the community. And we've talked about this idea of based on our 15-year projections, we need to build 17 schools in 15 years. That is a very, very hefty price tag to then say we're going to flip and build more middle schools and more high schools to allow that 6, 8, 9, 12 model. We would have to have a significant support from the community to consider that any earlier than when we kind of peak out. And one of the things we're also trying to be mindful of as we're doing this is you don't want to build schools to the peak. Right? Like everybody has like a peak where like you hit like the top of your peak in growth and then you start to decline. You want to build to somewhere kind of like as the curve starts to kind of go up, but not the top of the curve. Because you want to build for, yes, we're going to bring in satellites and portables so that when we do have a decline in enrollment, those can be shifted, those can be sold, those can be surplused. Because if not, you're looking at things like you have a significant level of under enrollment and then there's a significant cost. There's a base cost to run a school, regardless if you have 400 students or 1,000 students, and then you start having feedback from the community about whether or not you continue to fund under-enrolled schools, because there's a significant cost associated with it. And then the schools are also very expensive. So if you're going to build a 70-year building, you want to use it for 70 years, not for 25, and then, the school doesn't have a purpose. Any other high school related questions? Okay, next up, the middle schools. Middle schools are not as scary as the high school numbers, but still, significant. One of the things you're going to see specifically with Vista Heights, you'll see that sometimes there's a designation where, for example, it says overcapacity and fast growth. Essentially, that means that it's kind of a double whammy, where the school's growing and at the same time it's already overcapacity. So some of these issues we can deal with, like obviously having Westlake and Cedar Valley and only those 2 schools, you can't really reboundary that issue away. We're going to have to build new schools to deal with that issue. There's not really an alternative. But when it comes to things like the middle schools, we have 4 of them, so we can potentially do some boundary changes, but we need to be mindful, right? Frontier is in a fast growth area, and in 4 years going to be at 97%. Probably not a good idea to reboundary, because a few years after that, they're going to be over capacity and in a fast growth area, right? So Lake Mountain is now kind of in a sweet spot, but depending on how fast Three Canyons and Teguayo come on, that potentially means that those schools all of a sudden become a fast growth area. Same thing with Sage Canyon, as we see things like the Firefly development come on. And then, like I said, you see that Vista Heights is kind of in that double whammy period of they're being hit by their already overcapacity and they're in a fast growth area. So any specific feedback or thoughts about middle schools before we move on to elementary? Okay. Okay, so elementary, we have once again a couple of schools that are in the double whammy section, specifically Juniper Basin and Mountain Trails. Those schools, when you look at where they are, and once again, I really appreciate the enrollment projections, but it's hard to predict high growth areas. So the projection for Juniper Basin was supposed to be
781.
781. They're at 842 in enrollment already. And it's not been the first day of school yet. So once again, high growth.
Paint's not dry.
The paint isn't dry. Doors haven't been opened. Yeah, they're still doing the punch list items on the school. So you'll see that some of the schools, we actually have several that are over capacity. You look at it, Eagle Valley, Juniper Basin, Mountain Trails, Pony Express, Silver Lake, and Springside, all of those are over capacity. There's a couple that stand out. So for example, Mountain Trails, looking at 158% capacity in 2030, Juniper Basin being at 121%, Springside being at 122. So we definitely have some hot spots. So as we talk about this idea of potentially bonding in 27, we need to look at not only are we placing the schools in the right area, we've got to look at, is it in a fast growing area? Is it already over capacity? And how many of these can be shifted? So let me give you an example. Part of the reason Eagle Valley is overcrowded right now, like over capacity, is essentially because a boundary change forced them to be over capacity to take some of the heat off Mountain Trails, because we knew Mountain Trails was going to be growing at a really fast pace. So depending on how that grows, is a new school that comes in, is that something where you would reboundary Mountain Trails as well as Eagle Valley and solve both of those schools simultaneously? Because Eagle Valley is in an area that is somewhat built out currently, although that can shift depending on when building permits get pulled. Same thing with Pony Express. Pony Express, I think, ranks as the school that has been boundary shifted the most. I believe they are at 9 boundary changes since they opened. They hold the record. Another one is
How many
Silver
years?
Lake. What?
In how many years?
I think I want to say they've been, is it 24 years that I think Pony
So
Express
like
has been
every
open?
3 years,
Yeah.
2.5 years.
And for anyone who was in the Thunder Ridge area, they were bounced back between, like the Sunrise Meadows area got bounced back between Harvest and Thunder, and then back to Harvest, Saratoga Shores. And so we have a couple of neighborhoods that have kind of just been in that middle section. One of the reasons that Springside is larger is because we're now taking in the students from North Shore that had previously attended Dry Creek in the Aspen Peaks area. Silver Lake is larger because of, once again, a boundary shift. One of the things we will see is that there are about, I think if I remember correctly, about 3,300 vested units in Brookhaven boundaries. So Brookhaven's not actually on one of our, like, you know, danger Will Robinson areas. But one of the things we also need to be aware of is each school has specific site issues. So for example, Brookhaven sits sideways. We can only fit 3 portables on the back of that school. So even though the capacity as far as the number of classrooms may be, you know, identical to another school, we can only add 3 portables and then we're capped out. Sage Hills is another one that has some significant limitations because of how small the lot is and then the topography behind it. We can only fit like 3 portables on the back of Sage Hills, and then it's at capacity. So it's not just the brick and mortar, it's also like what can each site hold based on unique circumstances. So part of the reason some of the boundary changes were done, like for example, you'll see that like, you know, Harbor Point's kind of in a safe area. Sage Hills feels like they're sitting pretty. Sage Hills is also going to be in a space between Sage Hills and Saratoga Shores, where with the growth of Brixton Park and then potentially 3 Canyons coming on, those schools will be hit the hardest and they have the least amount of ability to really take on additional impact. So we have 6 elementaries that are over capacity, 5 that are fast growth at this point, and then we have 2 in that double whammy position that are Juniper Basin and Mountain Trails. One of the things we need to consider as we talk about things like a 2027 bond, we currently have property in the Wander community as well as Mount Saratoga. We do not have any more property in Eagle Mountain. I'm going to say that again. We have no additional property for an elementary school in Eagle Mountain. It's one of the priorities that the operations and facilities team has been working on. I actually got a text from a realtor as we were sitting here. So we are actively working on it, but the reality is when we go for a bond in 27, we realistically need to talk about a high school. We need to realistically talk about 3 elementary schools pretty quickly. And we also need to develop a very significant strategy for land banking long-term, because we need to start securing these sites. Eagle Mountain is 52 square miles and it feels very, very big, but there are actually very few landowners. There's a couple of really large landowners. Some of them want to sell and some of them don't. So we need to work with current landowners, developers, the cities as they're planning out things to say, hey, as you guys are approving developments, the question that needs to be asked is where's the school site? Where's the designated school site? And so we need to make sure that we're communicating with our municipalities. One of the things that I sometimes hear from constituents is, why doesn't the city just stop the building? So a lot of these developers have vested units, meaning essentially they were guaranteed those units decades ago. And so the city cannot do anything to stop them. The other thing is there's a specific piece of state code that says you cannot deny building permits for 2 reasons. You can't deny them because of roads, and you can't deny them for overcrowded schools. For anyone who lives in our area, those are things that we struggle with every day. So one of the challenges that we face is making sure that we're trying to make the least impact on our taxpayers as we talk about things like bonding, but that we're also looking forward with a plan to address each of these issues. When we talked about this idea of the 100 acres, where we secured the land for our next high school, MTech, and then the UVU partnership, part of that was us forward thinking about, we know that we're going to need another high school sooner than later. And so we need to start communicating to our community what that looks like and how we best get those supports in place. One of the challenges that we face is that we're already behind. If you look at the capacity of our schools, the fast growth in some of these areas, we're already coming from a deficit. And so one of the ways we need to resolve that is how we've addressed it before, whether it is donations, working with seller financing, having conversations like with St. John's to address the ATEC West facility. We need to work with our partners in the community, but this is a situation that we have to deal with, and we want to make sure that we are looking forward and solving this proactively and not waiting and being reactive.
Julie,
Yeah.
I know we've said capital plan conservatively is 17 schools in 15 years, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that, how does, if you don't mind me, how does that break down regarding elementary, middle, high schools?
So the idea is roughly the best feeder program we have found is 5 elementaries that feed to 1 middle school that feed to 1 high school. So we currently in Alpine have 10 high schools, 4 of those are under enrolled. We don't want to get to a situation where we're as big as Alpine is currently and we have under enrolled schools. So do we plan for 6 or 7? Yes, I did do 7. High schools, which means we currently have 2, 1 under construction, which means we need to do 3 more. We've got the land for 1, so we need to find at least 2 more high school sites. We have 4 middle schools. We have identified a couple of potential future middle school sites, which operations facilities are working on, but we would need potentially 6 middle schools. We currently have 16 elementaries. We would potentially need 30. So 14 elementaries.
16 plus 14. For a second, I thought you said 30. I was like, 30 more? Okay.
No, yep, 30 total. So 14 more elementaries, 2 more middles, 3 more high schools, and that's with us assuming the schools are going to have satellites. We're going to make sure we don't hit the peak. We're going to make sure we don't overbuild. That is our projection at this point. Now, that can shift based on things, but we've looked at things like the MAG projections as well as Kim C. Gardner does numbers every year about communities. We also look at things like how many single-family homes were built, how many permits were pulled for high-density housing, and that helps determine what we anticipate the growth is going to be.
When you said 3 more high schools, does that include the site in Eagle Mountain, or is that in addition to the?
So the site in Eagle Mountain plus 2 more.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying
fine.
Westlake Cedar
That's fine.
Valley, the 1 under construction, and then 3 more, the 1 site we have, and then 2 more. And it may go to 7, but I think our focus is to try to keep it 6 middle and high school conservatively and ride it so that we don't hit the peak and then we've overbuilt.
Thank you.
Yeah, one thing to be aware of is the Saratoga Springs development trajectory has been significantly metered by infrastructure and the sewage, in particular on the south end of the city. But the Three Canyons development represents a large investment in an upgrade to the infrastructure for sewer, and it's going to open the floodgates. Essentially, that south end of the city that hasn't been developing because of those restrictions, those restrictions won't be in place anymore. So we could potentially see some large-scale developments happening that have been really on the books for a long time that could really open up. It could end up being 3 high schools in Saratoga, 3 in Eagle Mountain.
Yeah, so one of the things about, if I remember correctly with Three Canyons, part of their development agreement allows them to build up to 800 units by 2030. So they're not really showing up on this map just yet because they haven't started pulling permits and they're still kind of in that phase. And then I believe it's by 2040, they have something like 2,900 units. So some of these, I mean, not necessarily meaning that all of them will get pulled, but potentially. And we've already had conversations with Three Canyons. They have identified 2 elementary sites within their development. We haven't purchased them. They haven't sold them to us, but it is something that we've had conversations about, and they've identified land.
So as you are projecting this out, obviously we can't just break ground in 17 schools, in 2027, as much as we'd like to and need to. What are we looking at in terms of kind of phasing it? Is it a handful of elementary and a middle and a high school? Like, what's that look like?
So here, we have worked in the past, Alpine School District has worked with Stiefel, and I've asked them to run some numbers for us. And I've asked them to run numbers on just a fake, throw it out, $350 million bond. That would include potentially the next high school, 3 elementary schools, and then a significant amount of money set aside for land bank. So one of the challenges that we face is generally when you do a bond is the money gets released in phases. So you don't just take all the money all at once and then build everything in the same year. So for example, let's say our elementaries are the ones we're most concerned about. Okay, fine. We're just going to be done for this stuff. Unless you guys want to talk about the handbook.
Nope.
Okay, so the thought process is Do we try and build all 3 elementaries in year 1? Because potentially you could, if you take a $350 million bond, about $120 million of that would be the elementaries. Do you build all of them year 1 and solve Mountain Trails and Juniper Basin? You solve Springside, you solve Thunder Ridge and potentially Reboundary, and solve a little bit of Pony and Silver Lake, right? Do you solve a lot of school problems all in the same year? What that would mean is that we would have to wait and do the high school later. So the best case scenario for us is if we do a bond in 2027 and it passes, we get the funding in 28. We've already identified the high school site. Let's say we go ahead and do some of the engineering, some of the geotech in advance. We start building, breaking ground in 28. That means best case scenario, we open in 2031. The numbers you saw up there about capacity were 2030. So that's a year later. That's if we start phase 1 right away, which means we're delaying elementary builds. So now we're going to be kind of in this space of who do we choose? And knowing that a high school takes 3 years to build, and so you're, putting out plots of money year 1, year 2, year 3, can you wait till year 4 and do all of the elementaries in year 4, or do you do the high school launch in year 1, and then in year 2 you bring in a elementary, year 3 you bring in an elementary, year 4 you bring in an elementary, but then who's waiting? Welcome to the board.
It's funny because I've had parents ask me this exact question. Like,
Yeah.
how do you prioritize the Saratoga elementary school when you know the Eagle Mountain needs a school, or vice versa, right? Like I've had parents ask me that exact question, and one of the things I have been saying is we have been we're coming from a framework where it was one or the other. We may have to shift and recognize significant growth in parallel, where based on the funds and the availability and the need, being respectful of the taxpayer dollar and not overbuilding or building too soon. But if the need is in 2 areas, then we need to build 2 schools. And it's not a them versus us or a west versus east. It's potentially both.
Julie, can you walk us through the process of what it means to go from no bond to deciding whether or not we do a bond and go to our public? What's that process? Do we vote on it? Does the district decide? How is that decided? Because right now, we haven't made that decision, correct?
No, we haven't. And we're kind of more in the exploratory phase. It's more like, let's research, let's learn, which is why I asked bond counsel to run some numbers for us, just to see what would the impact be to the average taxpayer, right? Like, what would it look like on the average home if we did do this? I've also asked them to look at some different numbers. Generally, we run bonds on a 20-year cycle, and I've said, okay, so what happens if we run it on a 30-year cycle? How much does that reduce the cost to our taxpayers so we can maybe stretch our dollars a little bit more and not have so much of an impact? So part of it is it's a research phase, right? We start having conversations and looking at, we know roughly what schools cost. We're also looking at alternative builds. What we did with ATech West is just an example of that. What we're doing even with talking about the bus maintenance, where Matt referenced that we applied for a CTE grant, and so can potentially some of that CTE money offset the build of that building by using CTE money to help offset that. We're looking at alternative builds for some of our elementary schools. It's why we've had the conversation of becoming a charter authorizer. We're looking at everything. Anything and everything. Generally what happens is there are certain deadlines we have to hit at a level. We have to start having public discussions potentially in the spring. We have to generally decide in June. Yes, we start having the conversations. We notify the public we're considering this. And then we have a deadline as to when we have to say, yes, we're going to put it on a bond. And basically what happens is then it goes on a bond, it goes on a general ballot in November. And then at that point, the public says yes or no.
But would a vote be taken amongst us to decide if we...
Whether or not we ask the public to approve a bond, we do vote.
That's our vote.
Yes.
And as of right now, we're exploring.
Yeah, we're not at the phase where it's premature for us to say we are for sure going for a bond. This is more of the let's start asking questions. Let's start looking at the enrollment projections. I anticipate that ASD, they generally do enrollment projections in November, and in November, it's like a 200-page book. My guess is that we're getting a 20-page version this year, where it's not going to be the big, cycle. They'll give a small kind of snippet for each district of what it's looking like. And then at that point, we'll need to start talking with our staff. We'll start having conversations with the cities about, hey, do you think our projections are right based on our history, based on what we've seen? There's a reason why about $2 billion in state money has been funneled to the expansion of Mountain View Corridor, 2100 North, and even the expansion. There is a Cedar Valley Highway that is essentially getting a piece of it funded. There's conversations about like a Lake Mountain Corridor, a Lake Mountain Highway that's coming through. That one has not been funded, but a study is being researched. So yeah, that whole if we build it, they will come. We better start building because they're coming.
Yeah.
No, they're here.
They're here.
One thing I have been really impressed with is how our board has been trying to do everything we can to not go to our public for taxes. One of those things was, I know you helped run a bill through the legislature to look at some alternative through the legislature. Can you just, not a big long one, but just tell me a little bit about that avenue that you explored?
So Matt and I worked with the governor's office as well as a senator in our area to run a bill, SB 189. Basically, the idea was, as we're talking about growth, right, the 2100 North expansion to I-15, Mountain View Corridor, UDOT does something called a preservation corridor. They know that, for example, they're going to expand Mountain View Corridor, they're going to expand 2100 North, there's going to be highways built. So they go in and they pre-purchase the land for right-of-ways, knowing that the land's going to be built. And UDOT essentially is given money to pre-buy those properties. Our idea that we threw out there was, what if there was a preservation corridor for education, where we know that we're the fastest growing two cities in the state and nationwide we rank. What if we were able to use state dollars to purchase some of these properties now at today's prices, lock those in and preserve those properties, knowing that, for example, there's master transportation plans, there's master development plans. The cities know where the developments are coming, they know where the units are gonna go. So can we go ahead and design and purchase property already in those? That bill didn't pass. I think it was conflated with the split. There was very much this idea, like, if you guys are gonna split, that's fine, but we're not paying for it. And there was an assumption that that bill was really a split bill. Our growth has nothing to do with the split. Whether we split or not, our growth is our growth is our growth. Like, it's just happening. So the piece of advice I got was run the bill after the split's done. So we may come back to it like in the 2028 session, once the split is done and it's no longer. The other thing is that we probably need to work with a coalition. Some of the other districts that could potentially benefit from a bill like this are Tooele, areas like Iron County where they're seeing some growth, even Brigham City where the energy project comes on. The growth is not unique to us. We probably have the longest term growth for decades that we will see. Other areas will see pockets of growth, but it will benefit other areas. It's not just specific to our district.
I thought that was brilliant that you were thinking outside the box to help us in this situation that we find ourselves.
We're really comfortable asking anyone for money.
If I can just add one more question. I know that when we met with Saratoga Springs City earlier this year, and we kind of talked about the capital plan, I know we've been building relationships with both cities. Are both the cities that we work with, actually all four cities that we work with, are they aware of the restraints that we have in terms of how many schools we need and the lands that we're looking for?
We've had some basic conversations. I don't know that we've actually sent out like a flyer to everybody, but we have had conversations with different city council members, mayors that we've kind of connected with. As to the locations of each of those, it depends on the city. We've worked most closely recently with Saratoga just because obviously this building, Matt referenced, the things we need to do in Transportation West. Some of the most immediate needs that are happening in the city of Saratoga. Our plan right now is we are meeting with Saratoga monthly just based on the ongoing projects that we have happening. We are planning quarterly meetings with the city of Eagle Mountain. We'll wait a little while before we reach out to Cedar Fort and Fairfield just because there are some challenges with those cities as far as sewer systems and other options for us to actually build schools in those areas. But we have had conversations about some of the ideas we have for future designs for schools and where those would be located.
I just appreciate the work that has been done, and I appreciate what you could share.
Yeah, for sure. Is everybody feeling a little shell-shocked? We okay? We good?
I just went through and started counting out the ones that were, there were those that were not in red, but were still over 100%. And it was significantly easier to count the ones that were not. It was 5 elementaries and 2 middle schools, and that's
it.
We have 24 schools.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that weren't at or over capacity. So yeah, shell shock is a great word for it.
We're really popular, and I love that everybody wants to come and hang out and be here, and the secret's out. We need to be forward thinking, and we need to look at all the options, and that looks like different funding, different legislation. It looks like partnering, seller financing, bonding. We're considering all the tools in the toolbox.
Love it.
So just one more question. If the public looks at these charts, can you clarify if one of the schools is over 100%, like let's say Eagle Valley's at 103%, that does not mean, I don't think, it does not mean 3% of our students are without a classroom. It just means that the building was built for a certain number of students and we're over that. But with our portables and other things, our common areas are over abundant, but it doesn't mean we have a certain percent of our students without a desk and a chair and a teacher.
Correct. And I think we've got to be careful when we say overcapacity. Sometimes I hear overcrowded. And I think there's a difference, right? I mean, just to give you an example, the number that we use is 26 for the elementary classrooms. Generally, our funding for K-1 is 23, it's 26, second, third. It goes all the way up to 30. So not every classroom is going to have exactly 26 students. And then once again, you add portables, satellites. We have fantastic staff that are magicians at making it work. There are also, like we talked about, Brookhaven, Sage Hill, some specific things. One of the challenges with Westlake in particular is that Westlake was built during when the Great Recession hit, and they had to make some cuts to the building to make it work, and they cut the cafeteria in half. So the cafeteria at Westlake is half the size of what it's supposed to be. And when you have a school that's 162% of capacity, that creates challenges that maybe aren't on a spreadsheet. There's a reason why Westlake has an hour-long lunch, because the idea is that the students will actually exit the campus to go, and the majority of them will to have lunch elsewhere. And that helps. That's some of the things that are put in place to adjust with
And
capacity.
You're right about the magician thing. I know the staff have invited some of the businesses in the city to actually bring food in, like food truck style, ready to go, not to cook, but like ready to serve. And the Chick-fil-A truck brings like truckload of chicken sandwiches, and they just sell out within just minutes. And that's a magician's solution that the kids love and it really helps.
Yeah, we look for all kind of ways to solve problems. Okay, any other thoughts, feedback? Okay, I don't have my watch on. What time is it?
Night.
Okay, so we're ending study session at 5:19, and then we will come back for our board meeting block. Thank you. it is 6 o'clock on Thursday, July 9th. I am calling to order the Lake Mountain School Board of Education meeting. We are meeting at the district office, 1307 North Commerce Drive in Saratoga Springs. Okay, I want to make sure that we acknowledge that Board Member Lincoln is not present, and we're excusing her from the meeting this evening. First up on our agenda, we have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Travis Hamblin, and then our inspirational thought will be shared by Kim Romero.
Good evening, everyone. Well, as I was thinking about what inspirational message I was going to share tonight, I found myself thinking about it was about 6 years ago when the administrators at my district that I just came from, we were studying a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And at that time, our student outcomes needed a lot of improving. And we knew that we needed to think differently about how we were looking at improvement to support our students and our families. And one question the book asked, and it really has stayed with me ever since, is why do some organizations, or you can think about school districts, become truly great while others never make the leap? Collins quoted, "Greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice." So when I think about our district becoming or starting to take shape, we have such a unique opportunity to define who we are and who we will become. Our future is determined by the discipline and thoughtful decisions that we make together over time and the culture those decisions create. And I was thinking about that during study session, how all of these decisions are being made very, very thoughtful in support of the families and the students that we serve. The board has the privilege and responsibility of making the first decisions that will shape the district's foundation. And those decisions will literally set the course, and together our cabinet, educators, staff, students, families, and community will shape the district that we eventually become. And so just in closing, I'm just really proud to be a part of this district, and I know that there's a lot of passion and a lot of hard work that is going into creating a very special place for our students and families. So that's my thought.
Thanks, Kim. We appreciate that. Do we have any community comments? We do not. So next up, we have our consent agenda. I will entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, so we have a motion by Board Member Saucer. Do we have a second?
I second.
And a second by Board Member Judkins. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda with a motion by Board Member Saucer and a second by Board Member Judkins, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that appears to pass unanimously. Next up, we have a discussion action item, and we're excited to welcome Lucas Sharon, who is the principal of ATEC West. Lucas, you've been on the job for a whopping 9 days.
Hey.
Woohoo! So we're excited to have you here, and excited to have Lucas share with us the experience he had with going through the naming process of coming up with a new name for our ATEC West facility. He's going to walk us through and do a presentation about what they came up with.
Perfect. It worked. I was getting a little nervous when technology is involved and I'm going to look like the idiot up here, so that is good news. Nope, never mind. Spoke too soon. That was bad news. Oh, I don't know. Never mind. Let's do this. Okay, cool. All right, so board members, thank you for allowing me to come here and present for you today. We've had a lot of good conversations about the naming of the new, I guess we'll call it the new ATEC West. That's kind of what it's been referred to as. We had a lot of good community input, a lot of input from teachers and community members, a lot of good collaboration from district leadership to help me know what to do, since the timeline was a little bit shortened, and that's okay. It's great. So let's jump right into it. First of all, we wanted to say thank you to the Lake Mountain and Alpine School District Boards of Education, district leadership, patrons, families, and the teachers who have worked together to make a new post-secondary school a possibility. Something that we're very excited about, including all the interns. I keep on hearing about how excited they are, and so that's a big deal. So the committee formation, this was our committee. We had 8 different parents, and then me and Kim Romerl as our ex officio officer. We also had an SCC chair from Horizon, since I have a joint SCC with Horizon School Community Council. Here was our process. So the survey was sent via alerts, so email and text, June 22nd and June 26th. We tried to give everybody a week to be able to respond and gave them multiple reminders. We had about 17 responses, 28 different name recommendations, and then we had responses from both Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs, so a nice mix. The committee meeting was on July 6th, so on Monday. And we followed policy 1618 as outlined in the Alpine rules and regs. So here's the process. So we established our norms and considerations. Then we split up into small groups. We had 8 members besides me and Kim. And so we split up into groups of 2. After reviewing sort of the legacy, who we want to be, what we want to be known as, then encouraged every group to come up with 2 to 3 names. We came back as a whole committee, and that's when the fun began, and it was actually really great. We had a lot of really great names. We got stuck on a few, but we knew we had to narrow it down to 3, so we got there, and it was really great. We had a really good discussion about what we want to be known as, and that was the most exciting thing, is as a new school in a new building, what sort of legacy do we want to leave? And we'll get into that a little deeper. And we began discussions on mascots and colors. We're going to get together again to go over mascots more. But we did narrow it down to a few, and you'll see them kind of placed throughout all the recommendations. Our key naming considerations. So we know that naming a school is rare, and that naming a post-secondary school is even more rare. How often do you get to do that? So we knew that this was a big deal, and we took it seriously. We considered the following. The outcome will ultimately influence generations of students, faculty, and community members. We wanted to have a unique name. We didn't want to be named after the same as another school. We wanted to represent the environment, the culture, and the traditions that we had, and a name that the community can actually be excited about. So that's what we tried to do. So a few of the ones that were not chosen. Some people wanted to stick with ATEC West, and I was like, well, that's great. ATEC West Warriors, the Lakeside Bees. The bolded one is my vote, so I think we can all just be adults and admit that's the best one and just move forward. So it's the Phoenix Rising Academy, and they have 3 mascots, the Phoenixes, the Unicorns, and the Mermaids. So I don't know if we need to continue the presentation after that. So there's some other ones, some really cool names, some really cool ideas, and it was nice to see what the community was kind of thinking and what their vision was. All right, so getting to our name recommendations in alphabetical order. The first one is Beacon Hill. Some mascots that we came up with that kind of go along with that are the Navigators, the Pelicans, the Otters. Beacon Hill, we want to be a light and partner with our interns to shine a light on different opportunities, different things they can do, different directions they can go. And so partnering with them to shine a light on their future is what we wanted to be known for. And then because of the beautiful hill that we're on with the new building, those 2 ideas went together well. Shout out to John Emmett, who taught me how to do AI images. That was fun. That was really cool. I got a little distracted. All right, our next one, Bridgepoint. So some of the mascots tied to this and others were the Trailblazers, the Mountaineers, and the Mustangs. Bridgepoint, we see ourselves partnering with the interns to be a bridge from K through 12 education to the real world, to what we're doing outside, to jobs, to opportunities, to interests. And we want to be the bridge that allows them to be successful. And when they get to the other side, we want them to be in that bright future where they feel secure and ready to attack whatever they've decided to do. And that includes looking at everything from personal interests, leisure time, community resources. This isn't just about jobs and job experience, although that's definitely a priority. It's also about how are you going to spend your downtime? How are you going to contribute? It's not all about us. So how are we going to contribute to our communities? And we feel that we are the bridge to that idea and to that future. So looking at that, and then Point, top of that hill. We really like that hill. That's a big deal. We're feeling good about it. And then finally, Pinnacle Peak, nice alliteration there. Some mascots were the mountain climbers, the explorers, the hawks, and we are the pinnacle of their time will be the pinnacle of their time in Lake Mountain School District. And we want them, when they leave there, to feel like they've reached the peak and they're ready to go on to their next adventure. And feel just like this little person here, feeling so excited. So that was the third option that we came up with. So just a final thank you. We really do appreciate it. Your tireless efforts in securing a new school. As you know, the place where we are now is well used, and it is well loved, and it is it's ready to be expanded upon. So thank you so much, though, because oftentimes transition schools kind of get left as an afterthought, and we don't feel like that. So thank you so much for taking the time and taking care of us, and we're excited for the future. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lucas. That's fantastic. Okay, so this is a discussion action item. Do we have a motion regarding the naming or the renaming, I guess, of ATAC West?
Can we ask questions to Lucas first?
You have to make a motion, then we have discussion. Or okay. Well, whatever. Just do whatever.
Well, now I'm speechless. Do you have a preference?
I don't. I think we're excited about all three of them, and now you guys get the hard job, so.
I also am curious if you, I think we chatted briefly before, Beacon Hill, Bridgepoint, Pinnacle Peak School, campus, center, transition.
Yeah, I think the main things to consider with that, I mean, obviously it's up to the board. I think the main things to consider with whatever title we have after the name is we want to be known as somewhere that adults are learning, somewhere where we're learning job skills, somewhere where we're learning community resources. And so something that's a little bit different than other entities within the district, but once again, that's up to you guys, so good luck.
What did ATEX stand for? Alpine?
Yeah, I think it originally stood for something else and then morphed a little bit from what I know the
Okay,
history.
what's
So
it
it
morphed into?
used to be Adult Transition Education Center, then it
Okay.
became sort of Alpine Technical Education Center. It's
Okay.
been sort of flip-flop back and forth.
Okay. I move that we name the new post-secondary special education school, Bridgepoint.
Okay, so we have a motion by Board Member Isaacson. Do we have a second? I'm going to second it. Second by Board Member King. Okay, now do we have any discussion? Board Member Isaacson, since you made the motion, do you want to, or are you done?
It stands out to me. I love what you've explained as far as like what it represents. I think it encapsulates kind of the vision and purpose of that school so nicely. I don't know what else to say about it. Truthfully, Pinnacle Peak, Bridgepoint, Beacon Hill, fantastic options to choose from. This is a tough one. I mean, we made the motions, we can really start the discussion, but I'd love to hear other board members' feedback or insights.
I think you guys nailed it. I mean, fantastic job. Naming a school is really hard, especially when there's constraints like, it doesn't, you don't name it after people, you don't name it after neighborhoods. And so it starts to kind of really limit what you can do. And I think that you have found like the perfect sweet spot of communicating very clearly the purpose of the school. That's really hard to do. So congratulations to your entire committee, because that's a hard lift.
We had good, smart people, so grateful for that.
I like that it's one word, but I do think that we should give it its full name, not just Bridgepoint. Like, is it going to be school, Bridgepoint School, or Education Center?
So it's technically not a school because it's not a K-12 school, it's a post-secondary. So there is a requirement in state code when we go, or like the state cactus system, when we go to register the school, we actually have to select that it's a vocation, it's a transition education center. So those are the categories in which the school, like obviously we have elementary, we have middle, we have high school. Because it's a post-secondary ed, we actually on the form when we're filling out, we have to check specific boxes. So we can leave it as just Bridgepoint, knowing that we're gonna have to check the box that is a transition education center, it's a vocational school. We can also add a moniker on it if we want to, but it's not necessary. But it will be designated in the state system as not a K-12 school.
Based on the box, that will
Correct.
finish the name.
Correct.
Okay.
So that gives them a little flexibility as to the moniker that they refer to it as.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it. That's cool.
I really like it. I want to thank the committee for all the work. You guys had a very tight time frame, and also being that it's July and right after the 4th, I want to thank you for your time because that was a lot. I love Bridgepoint as well. I think it's a great description of kind of what the school is and where it's going to go forward. And it's also just open as well. Like the bridge can be to anything, right? We can be very open with that. I'm just curious what the next step, do we pick the mascot as well? Is that up to the school? How does the next steps with that work?
So generally, what's been done in the past is that we select the name out of the 3 names. After this, because this is a little bit of a different situation where it's technically an Alpine school, this will also go on the Alpine agenda to be approved on Tuesday through them. Just like we have, whether it's the 100 acre, well, I guess the 100 acres doesn't count, but just like we have initiated things and then asked Alpine to support us in those, it's the same situation, just like they named the South Special Schools recently. So it'll go on the Alpine agenda. As far as the mascot and the colors, that really goes back to the principal to make the final call. The feedback I would suggest, Lucas,
I'm open to it.
is not to repeat current mascots.
Yeah.
We have 24 schools. So like, I'll just give you an example. Otters, Mustangs, and Pelicans are already covered.
Okay.
So, and sometimes we have ones like, for example, we have the Harvest Hawks, but then the Vista Heights Black Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Thunder Hawks at Sage Hills.
Okay.
So,
We'll
maybe
definitely look at
nothing
all
in the
those.
Hawk family.
Perfect.
And
We'll do a nice thorough
Hawks too?
review.
They're the Kestrels.
Kestrels, which is a hawk.
yeah.
Just.
Well, the other thing I was thinking, Desert Sky, are they?
The Explorers. Yeah, the Desert Sky are the
It's
Explorers.
close. It's close, but not the same. So.
Yeah.
We'll do a nice thorough review.
At some point, we may start repeting mascots, but I think we're still probably in the, and you guys had a lot of really good suggestions.
plenty,
that
yeah.
are, yeah.
Okay.
We need to officially vote. Was there any other discussion? I want to cut anybody off.
We covered it.
Okay. So we have a motion by Board Member Isaacson with a second by Board Member King that the renaming of ATAC West, the name selected is Bridgepoint. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That appears to pass unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up for action items, we have the MOU regarding the co-location. Do we have a motion regarding this action item? Okay, I will move that we approve the MOU for co-location. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second. So we have a motion by Board Member King, a second by Board Member Saucer. Any discussion? Basically, this is an MOU that allows us a level of redundancy with our data centers. So it is a agreement between us and Aspen Peaks to make sure that, you know, our data gets backed up in case there's a breach. Ryan can explain it way better than I do. I just kind of, you know, that's it, right? That's basically it. Yeah, that's the general gist of it. Want to make sure we've got backups upon backups upon backups. So that's all this is. Are there any other discussion points? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to approve the MOU co-location with a motion by Board Member King and a second by Board Member Saucer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that appears to pass unanimously. Next up, we have Resolution 2026-009, Vehicle for Disposition. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 2026-009, Vehicle for Disposition.
And then do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Board Member Judkins and a second by Board Member Saucer. Any discussion? Just a level of awareness, this one goes back to SB 188. ASD cannot dispose of any property without concurrence of all the new districts. This is a vehicle for Skyridge they would like to dispose of, and so they need our approval to do that. Okay, so we have a motion to approve Resolution 2026-009, the vehicle for disposition, with a motion by Board Member Judkins and a second by Board Member Saucer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that appears to pass unanimously. Next up, we have Policy Series 4000 personnel, the Alpine School District personnel policies. Do we have a motion?
I do. I move that the board accepts the Alpine School District Personnel 4000 Policy Series as Lake Mountain Transition Policies adopted under Utah Code 53G-3-308 through June 30th, 2028.
Second.
So we have a motion by Board Member Myers and a second by Board Member Saucer. Any discussion? So I'll just explain this one a little bit. One of the pieces of code for SB 188 regarding school district splits is that all personnel policies, salaries, and benefits have to remain for 1 year post-split. So the official split date is July 1 of 2027, which means all of these policies that are in existence in ASD regarding personnel are required by state code to be continued through June 30th of 2028. So we are essentially accepting the policies because they're already guaranteed in state code to exist for a year. So we're just accepting them as a group, knowing that these ones cannot be altered for a year. Did anybody have any questions about that one?
Can I just note that this is the only series of policy required by code to be adopted in this manner, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is why we have a very aggressive policy schedule coming up.
That's understated.
We're all super excited about the level of reading we're going to be doing over the next few board meetings. Okay, so was there any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion by Board Member Myers and a second by Board Member Saucer to accept the Alpine School District Personnel 4000 Policy Series as Lake Mountain Transition Policies adopted under Utah Code 53G-3-3081BII through June 30th of 2028. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that appears to pass unanimously. Next up, we have superintendent and board member reports. We would invite Dr. Carter to come to the podium.
So I will report out on more hires, because that's what we do, or offers that we're giving. We're to the point now where most of our administrators have been appointed. We did have Brooke Roden from Lake Mountain Middle School, who will be a new AP out at Cedar Valley High School, and that was announced district-wide. But these that I'm going to tell you weren't announced because they usually just announce administrator positions. So we have hired Jake McDonald as our print services, logistics, and distribution manager. I'm pretty sure we're going to shorten that a little bit. Jesse Williamson is our facilities supervisor. Sean Johnson in West Transportation, which Saratoga Springs would like us to now refer to as East Transportation, just so you know, will be the activities / coordinator. Russell Hickman will be the fleet manager. Michaela Hill will be the administrative assistant, and if I mispronounce that, I apologize to her. In our technology department, they have completed all of the job offers that need to be made, and they will be completing their hiring in September. We're really excited because our director of technology, Ryan, will be able to join us as a full-time employee on September the 8th. So we're really excited that Alpine has worked with us, and he'll be able to come down and work with the other technology directors to represent Mountain. Facilities will be interviewing for 6 foremen on Monday. Those are like the electrical department, the ground department, HVAC, and 3 others that I'm not naming because they're not in my head. Their hiring should be finished by the end of this month. We should have our facilities hiring pretty much completed. When it comes to transportation, we mentioned 3 that have been hired, but I also want to report out on the bus drivers. This is like such a great statistic here. We offered 53 contracts to our bus drivers, and 52 accepted. We are currently, we have the highest acceptance rate, and we're pretty happy about that. So we're pretty full right now. They are going to offer a few more contracts in the fall as they look at the needs that we have in West Transportation. Also, to report out on with fingerprinting, a lot of people have been asking, especially PTA moms, we have filled out and we have our information back. It's been approved that we will be able to transfer the fingerprinting records that are currently in Alpine School District to Lake Mountain pretty seamlessly for all staff and volunteers. So if people ask you that question, the answer is we can do that. And we're working on looking at how we continue that service to both our staff and our patrons, and also what we're looking at for badges. So we'll be giving you more information on that. I'm super excited that I'm no longer the only full-time employee in Lake Mountain. We have Travis and Amanda. Amanda's excused tonight. She is at another meeting, but we have Travis here. And it's really interesting to hear voices. It's crazy, okay? I'm so excited. I'm giddy about it. And then finally, the ASD employees that we've hired that are currently working in Alpine School District, and we've hired them to work in Lake Mountain, will be working here on Tuesdays. Starting this past Tuesday, we all met together, and that will happen for the first quarter. They can help us out in various areas. So we met all together. We went over the vision and values that you have established, and we'll share the goals when that happens. And they were really excited about it, and we're really excited to have them here. So we did have a full house on Tuesday, which was super exciting. Starting the second quarter, we'll add another day. And so I'm advocating for Thursdays. I'm making a public comment here because that's our board meeting day, and I feel like that would be a good way to do it, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then the third quarter will add a third day, and the fourth quarter will add a fourth day, knowing that if we need to support Alpine School District in any way, shape, or form, we will do that because Alpine districts are our students, so we want to take care of them. And I think that's everything I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Okay, it is time for board member reports if board members want to share information.
I'll talk about our mission vision meeting since the last time we had a board meeting. We're not ready to publicly announce the mission and vision, but just, publicly acknowledge that we had a day-long work session. We started the day at a school, got to see kids coming in to eat breakfast and visit a first and second grade summer school program that was going on, and talked to the summer school director and learn a little bit more about those programs. And then we got right into it and got to work talking mission and vision. I think it was a really successful day. It's hard to go into a space like that with, the group and have this big expectation to set a really big, important, long-lasting, thing through the process. But I think we did great, and that'll be coming out really soon. So just by way of a kind of acknowledgement that happened, and more to come. Okay.
Any other board member reports? Okay, so we do not have need of closed session. So do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Or we can just hang out. That's cool too.
I motion we adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion by Board Member Strong. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Judkins. All in favor of adjourning the meeting? The motion by Board Member Strong and a second by Board Member Judkins, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the meeting is officially adjourned at 6:31 PM. Thank you all for being here.